Thanks for being here. It's a new year. Happy New Year. New year, new you. I'm excited to be here. Be back on Adobe Live. We're going to be using Photoshop, Illustrator, Firefly, and of course, Adobe Express to spruce up profile pictures. I don't know about you. I use social media here and there. I did take a break over the holiday, but I use social media and I like to refresh my profile picture from time to time. So I'm going to go through a few photo editing tips, kind of how I do it in a traditional sense, and then leveraging some of Photoshop. And then we're going to create some elements in Illustrator. We're going to put those into Adobe Express and then leverage, I think, the simplicity and power of Adobe Express to make even a profile picture that's animated, right? Because you can do that with Adobe Express. All right, so switching over to Photoshop, and I'm going to do this one more time because y'all probably missed this. I have a photo here on the canvas. If you've never used Photoshop, right when Wade's message came through, I was talking about how to get images into Photoshop. Okay, so you can take the simple drag and drop approach. Photoshop, for someone who hasn't used it, sometimes it can feel maybe a little bit overwhelming. You're like, what can I click? What can I drag? What can I move? What can I do? Right? Because you can paint, you can edit, you can transform, and even more recently, as of last year, we can use generative AI. So we're going to use a lot of these tools to kind of make some of my photos better. I don't know about you. I like taking pictures as a hobby, but I'm not necessarily the best photographer. But thankfully, Adobe's coming in clutch with a lot of these tools to kind of help. All right, so I'm just going to show you real quick how I like to get a photo into Adobe Photoshop. Of course, if you're just working with the file, you can just hit File, Open, and you'll open that direct file. I'm just using a general canvas here because I don't really care about the aspect ratio or size of the image specifically right now, because we can crop and edit and clip things if we need to later on. So to get the image in, I'm just pulling open Finder here. Looks like I had my Illustrator window open, and I can just get a preview of this image. My spacebar has been acting a little weird lately. There's one image, for example. This will actually be a good example. I'm going to drag this in, and dragging and dropping it here, we just have the raw image placed. So I'm just playing with my holiday photos. This is a photo that I took at an event that I did with my sister. It's poorly cropped. I don't necessarily love it. So the first thing I need to do, I'm going to turn off these other layers that I had dragged in before. You'll get to meet my mom in a bit. Thank you, Wade, for the link mention there. But I'm just going to take this photo. First thing I want to do is right click, and we're going to go to rasterize layer. Now what this does is it makes the layer editable. Converts it from a smart object to pixels that we can directly manipulate, push, pull, and so forth. If I don't do that, for example, and I decide, hey, I've got this cool paintbrush and I want to paint something on the canvas, Photoshop actually will just automatically create a new layer there, right? And I'm not actually editing that image 9320. Super easy to remember name there, right? I'm not actually editing that. Okay, so Photoshop throws a new layer and says, hey, you're trying to put pixels down, cool. Back in the day, it used to scream at you, so I like this change, this update. So we're gonna right click and we're gonna go rasterize layer, which now my layer is pixels, and I can go ahead and paint directly on that. All right, so one of the new features that I really like about this new iteration version of Photoshop is, well, two things really, and both things you can actually do in Adobe Express as well, and I'll be showing you that. So one is removing the background. If you're like me and you've used Photoshop for a while, you probably know, getting in here and making the selection and being able to separate myself from the background, that used to be a really, really tough job. Like, you'd have to get in there, magnetic lasso, do things like feathering and multiple layers and all sorts of stuff to get the right thing. But now we can actually just right click. I think it's right here. There's always like five ways to do the same thing. So I think, oh, there we go. I forgot. It's right here on this context bar that's now part of Photoshop. So with the layer selected, I can hit select subject, and it's going to go ahead and select me. So that's one way to do it. Or let's just say I just want me in the photo. I can hit remove background. It's going to create a mask and try to separate me from the background. And if I want to go and edit that, we can isolate this mask. Hope I didn't freeze Photoshop there. Isolate. All right, it's not letting me isolate the mask here. Let's see. Okay, there we go. If I go to overlay, you'll see kind of where the mask is. Okay. And then I can go in and edit that as needed. So if I wanted to come in on the mask here, oops, pick like a, my keyboard is going crazy. Apologies, everyone. Select a little brush here, and then if I want to, you just paint with black, and I'm like, hey, you know, I don't really want some of these fuzzies. We can go ahead and do that. So pretty, yeah, my undo is not working for some reason, but pretty handy there if you want to go in and edit stuff. All right, let's go ahead. I think I'm gonna have to use mouse commands because my keyboard's acting a little bit weird here. All right, cool. So that's one of my favorite things to use. I'm gonna go ahead and actually just delete this mask for now because I want to show you another cool thing that you can do in Photoshop. And if you haven't done this yet, your mind's about to be blown. If you've done this before, you know what's coming. All right, so we can actually make a selection here. Yeah, my keyboard is completely decided to misbehave, so I'm gonna try and plug this in directly and see if this helps a little bit. Okay, looks like it's helping a little bit, but not really. Okay, so I'm just gonna have to use the commands here. So I'm gonna select the marquee tool, and if I want to make this a little bit bigger, I can actually just make a selection around the photo, maybe even just on this one side, because I'm okay with the left side here. And Photoshop's gonna try and guess, it's gonna try and guess what I want to put into this area. In fact, I need to be a little bit more precise, so I'm gonna select this area, and then we're gonna go to Generative Fill. All right, yeah, sorry about that, Jan. It's definitely my keyboard, and it seems to be messing with things a little bit. Okay, so got my selection here. We're gonna hit generate, and when I leave this blank, it's actually Photoshop's gonna try and fill this in automatically based on what's in the frame. All right, so we'll see how it does once you hit generate. It takes a little bit of time. That's actually pretty good. So it figured out that I'm a human. I have a shoulder. This is not exactly what was behind me, but that's okay because I really just want myself in this profile picture. In fact, I'm imagining something of a circle, perhaps something like this, that I'm showing with the marquee tool there. But what's cool is with the generative fill, you can actually select from a variety of options. And Photoshop will give you a few options. If you don't like those, then we can do it again, and you can do this as many times as you need. Don't stress and feel like you have to take what Photoshop's giving you. I'm actually going to crop this in just a little bit here, and then let's go ahead and do our marquee selection. Now, one of the things I found helpful if you're using generative fill is if you have just a little bit of overlap on your image, it kind of tells Photoshop like, yeah, I want you to continue this. Okay, so we're gonna go generative fill, leave that blank, just hit generate and see what it comes up with. All right, take a little minute there as the little Photoshop gnomes go to work on the servers. Would they be gnomes or elves? I don't know. All right, so there's one option. On the right here, we have variations. So in Photoshop, I can click on these variations. If I find one that I like, right, I'm focusing more on the shirt and my arm and how wide my shoulders are. This one feels a little bit off. This one feels a little bit off as well, like a little too wide. This one actually feels pretty good. So I'm going to go with that. And now just select these two layers and let's go to layer. Where is it? Merge layers. Boom. There we go. I'm used to keyboard shortcuts. I'm sure some of you are as well. All right. So now those are merged. I can hit remove background. I could either save this image and then immediately send it to a library, for example, and have that pop up in Express, or we can go ahead and edit here as well. It just depends on how you want to work. And again, I'm I will show you a bit of that. If there's other things in your image you want to change, you can also make selections here. And I can say, let's go ahead and fill this in. And I want to remove this strap. Now, sometimes the results are a little unpredictable. So we'll see what we come up with. I'm going to try and refine this selection just ever so slightly. Okay. One of the things you'll also find with generative technology is that you kind of have to be a little bit specific, I think, in what you want. Well, you'll kind of get the feel for it, but you do have to be specific in some ways in terms of selection and what you're actually trying to do. Sometimes, though, if you're overly verbose, I'll show you that in a minute, you won't necessarily get what you're after. All right, but I think this is a good starting place. I just made a selection. I'll do it one more time for y'all because it happened so quickly. I didn't think it would happen this quick. I don't like this strap, okay, around my neck because obviously you can see I'm at some trade show event, whatever, and I want to remove that. Now, I don't want to have to paint and remove this. I'm just going to select around. I'm using the polygonal lasso tool because I'm using a mouse and it's just really easy. And now that I have my selection, we can hit generative fill and I can say remove. And Photoshop, fingers crossed, is going to be smart enough to know, hey, you just want to remove this lanyard. I say smart enough because I did make a little additional selection up by my neck right around here. So I'm hoping it figures it out. All right, looks like it put some characters on the strap. We have another strap with characters and this one that's kind of removed. So I'm actually going to go back to the first results I had where I didn't select right around my neck, but you can see it does a pretty good job of removing that element within the photo. So I have 3 options here. Pretty cool. All right. So when I'm satisfied with whatever I get, I like to just select both layers and with my fancy keyboard command, Control E or Command E. Now my keyboard's behaving, Jan, so you won't have to wonder if it's your keyboard. We can merge those layers. And it's a pretty, I think, decent place to start based on what I want. I've got my square image that I'm going to use as my profile. I've removed the background and we now have myself as the focus. One of the things I like to do in Photoshop, and again, this is for purposes of comparison because I'm going to show you some stuff you can do in Express as well. We can go to filter, especially for people who are professionals. You're probably used to some of these commands I'm going to show you. But if you go to filter and we go to camera raw filter, super useful if you've never used it. It works on a variety of images. It'll isolate your layer in Photoshop and you have access to basically the Lightroom commands here. So if you don't know a lot about photo editing, once the camera raw filter is up here, I'm going to pull it up one more time because I know that probably happened a little quickly. So we go filter, camera raw filter, or Command Shift A, and that's going to pull up your camera raw window in which you have options, things like exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, color, effects, curves, you name it. If you're a professional and you do a little bit of photo editing, you might want to use some of these things. I can already see in my image there's some noise, okay, and there's some haziness. It's maybe not as sharp as I would like. So if I go into this first setting, and I'm lazy, so I like to just hit auto and see what it does. All right, so once I hit auto, it makes some adjustments, and then from there I can go ahead and make some other adjustments. Maybe I want my shirt to be darker, so I can play with the shadows or the blacks, depending on which is going to get me the result I'm after. I'm much more of a I'm trying to think of the right word, emotive or perceptual designer. Like I'll just tinker and play with things rather than, you know, knowing exactly step A, step B, step C, and so forth. So playing with those a bit, and then I usually go to, let's see, I believe it's under effects. I'll adjust the texture and clarity of the image. Okay, sometimes dehazing as well. There's a bit of fuzziness in the image. You can think of dehazing like removing a bit of that atmospheric fog that you might have in an image. But more importantly, and it really just depends on your image and what you're after, you can play with details. So sharpening, I like to drag that up to about 100 radius. And this is just, again, instinctual, perceptive stuff. Okay, so these are the settings I normally use. I'll drag the radius up to 1.4 because someone's probably like, hey, 1.6 is better. And then I'll play with the masking, the sharpening amount, anywhere from 100 to 124. So, and then the detail slider as well. Okay. And that's just going to, we can turn that on or off. Okay. Just click and hold here and you can see the before and after. All right. We're just getting, it looks a little bit more noisy, right? Right around my face here and stuff. So we can always play with that. Like I said, play with the masking, play with the radius, play with the amount of detail, and you'll see those changes happen in real time. But I tend to like more grainy, noisy photos anyways. In fact, one of the other effects I like to use is grain. All right. But if you don't want to get into the weeds and do all of this, once I hit OK, it's going to update the layer and I'll have those settings in place. In fact, we can go ahead and I'm going to save a copy of this image. And let's save it to my cloud documents, save options. I'm not sure why that's giving me that message there. So I'm just going to save this into my cloud documents. I'll just call it me, hit save. And what's cool is because we are in the Adobe family of products and services and experiences and all the cool stuff that we have at our fingertips, we can actually just jump into another experience, and because I save this into my files, we'll be able to access it real quick. All right, so those are just some basic settings I like to do with my picture before doing anything. You can see here in Photoshop, this layer, let's see, it's called remove, but that's because I merged the layers together. But this selfie of me, right, it's on a separate layer, so I can move this around. I did commit the changes, so if you are going to scale up, we can scale up a little bit and save that. But for now, let's jump over to Adobe Express. And I've got Firefly open there. All right, so this is Adobe Express. If you've never opened it, super simple, super easy. Basically, it's kind of like with your clients. You're like, what do you want? What do you want us to make? What do you want to do today? Adobe Express greets you with that question. What do you want to make? All right, it's a good place to start. So we're focusing on photos today, and there's not specifically, I did check, there's not specifically a profile picture option. So you kind of have to decide on what size of an image you wanted to create, where you're going to use it and so forth. Templates are a great place to start. So let's say I'm imagining that my profile picture is a square. I can just hit create from scratch an Instagram square post, right? And when I go to your stuff, there's this little icon here on the top left, your stuff, you'll see all these other things that I created in Adobe Fresco and some in Illustrator, screenshots even that I've taken and uploaded to the Adobe Cloud, and I have access to those. But I can actually just tap on this profile picture that I was working on in Photoshop, and we can just put that into Express and scale it up. Now you might be wondering, why would you even bother with Express? I guess my image in Photoshop wasn't entirely square, so that's what I'm dealing with there. So I can scale this image up as well, or let's say it was sized the same as the canvas. I want to show you a little bit of this magic, and I love this because, I don't know, I just think it's cool. The technology is cool. But let's say I wanted to scale myself up here in my actual Photoshop file, and we're going to go ahead and let's see, let's just make sure. I'm going to go save as, and I'm going to overwrite on the cloud here this file myself. We're going to hit save, and it's now saved to the clouds. Hopefully you catch this change. It's going to tell me, hey, your file's changed. Do you want to update it? Or maybe it's going to save another copy there. We'll see. But it should update. My internet was acting a little bit weird today. So let's see if it updates here. Give it just a second. All right, let's save that and let's go back here. All right, it's not updating for me. Now I feel like I was trying to show you something and it's not doing it. It's never a good feeling, but I promise you it will update. Especially like if you're someone like me who likes to draw in things like Adobe Fresco, Illustrator, whatever, it's a little bit faster to update. I suspect it has to do with a little bit with the file size here, but we can even go back to our stuff or get out of the working window here, back to our main window. And if you want to find something that you were working on before, you can always hit your stuff. You'll see all the files you have. that are compatible with Adobe Express here, and we can click and it'll just be open. So you don't have to stress about, oh, what if I lose my file, because it's constantly saving as well. I'm just not sure why this one isn't updating, but in any case, we'll keep moving along. So if you don't like or want to use those photo effects I was talking about in Photoshop, we can do a lot of the same stuff in Express. All right, and Adobe Express is free. You can use it, download it, or not download it, but open the website and start playing around. Here's another selfie that I had when I wasn't actually recording. I thought I was recording. So in this instance, maybe I just want to remove the background, kind of like we did in Photoshop. We can do that as well. I still like to, and you can kind of see there, whoa, I removed the background. Maybe I want two of myself in my profile picture. We'll see here, but for now, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this one. I do prefer, in my own workflow and how I like to work, I do prefer to do the expand or generative fill in Photoshop as opposed to other tools. And I think it's just, I'm a creature of habit. I'm comfortable in Photoshop, so I can just do it, right? Just make the selection, hit generative fill. And because I cropped this photo poorly or whatever, we can expand the canvas. And I'm going to do it one more time here. Let's go generate. It's going to fill in. Because even if your canvas is a little bit too small, we can also expand as well. It's pretty cool. All right, so it figured out my arms. Cool. It missed my tattoos, unfortunately, but that's okay. It didn't know. I'd probably have to Photoshop those in. But I can also use the crop tool and expand and say, I'm aiming for a circle. Thanks for filling in my shirt a little bit, but let's go ahead and we're going to expand here and just hit generate. And it's going to try and fill in the ceiling, all right? Just that little extra spot that I gave it. And once we're ready, I'll collapse everything. We can save it as a JPEG, for example, and even just drag and drop it into Express and start to play with some of those photo settings. So this photo in particular, I haven't put into the camera raw filter. Again, if you, oh, that's what I was doing. I was going to export to my downloads here. So if you don't like to use those filters or get too messy with all of that, you can just, still use Express to edit that photo. So this is just the raw photo with a little bit of that expand as well. So I'm going to go ahead and let's drop this one in just so I can show you some of those photo editing tools, because I did make some edits to the other image. So there's our expanded image. I just dragged and dropped it from my computer. And we can scale that up. Oops, scale it up. Grab the wrong handle there. Okay, so I know I want something kind of like a square. And when you do select an image, okay, the menus, the interface is all contextual based on what you've selected. So selecting this image is now going to give me specific options, like removing the background, like I said. So I can click that and it just goes ahead and does it. It's pretty quick, pretty magical. Because we're working Express, it's an Adobe product. We also have layers. We have the ability to add elements behind, or in this case, there are even assets that you can just drag and drop in. Okay, but going back to the photo and adjustments, okay, there's effects or adjustments. Those are two I'm going to focus on right now. So if we go to effects, that's going to give you the option to either jump into a custom mode or, as of right now, use the duotone. I like the duotone. Kind of just gives you a quick way to set the mood, if you will, and style in your photo. Just super easy. If you've used Photoshop Express on the iPhone, I use it quite a bit for my profile pictures as well. Duotone is pretty nice. You can just kind of get that. It's almost like the gradient map adjustment layer in Photoshop for those who are familiar with that and how you might treat an image. We can also go into custom settings here. And if we go to custom, I can pick a specific color. Okay, so maybe I like that pink, but I want it to be a little bit darker. We can do that. If we go to swatches, or more colors, then we can pick another color to kind of apply to the whole thing. Maybe I want this deeper purple or blue or whatever. So there is some flexibility in terms of what you can do and the output you get. I liked where I was going with this, so I'm just going to undo. And let's see, I think it was, okay, it wasn't that one. So we're going to go back to custom here, get a little bit darker and maybe a little bit more of this deep pink here. Boom. There we go. All right, so now we can go back. You can also make adjustments to this. So you can kind of get creative. You can get creative. So I could even duplicate this image, right? So I've got two of me here. And with this image, what I can do is now come in and adjust the opacity. And let's pick another duotone color. Maybe it's this teal, whatever. And we can offset our image, okay? Which gives you this like really interesting kind of neon effect. I think it's, or not neon, but like almost this like synthwave effect. So you can get creative with Adobe Express here, these tools, and use that, if you will, to kind of spruce things up. So you might be wondering too, well, you remove the background, and I'm like, yeah, because I was just chilling in my kitchen. I took a selfie. Maybe that's not so interesting. There are elements in Adobe Express that we can use. So Adobe Stock, wonderful resource for those who are used to using, say, Illustrator and Photoshop, and you want to add something to a library and have access to that. Well, you can click on elements. We can pick up vector shapes, backgrounds, whatever, overlays, right? Lots of stuff you can explore here. We can also look at media. Okay, there's photos, video, audio. We'll get to the video in a minute, but let's just look for, let's see, I'm gonna type celebration. I didn't look this up ahead of time. I just want to see what they have in terms of celebration. Okay, so because it's a new year, new you, why not? I'm gonna go with this. Actually, it turns out this image I used in my thumbnail for the live today. So let's just continue with the theme here and see if we can use this to come up with something. So let's go ahead and scale this up. And again, just like other apps, you're gonna have the option to adjust your layers. So you may notice on the right here, I do have three little squares, icons, previews for each of those layers. So I've got my duotone self here in that teal blue, and I've got another duotone with this kind of reddish pink. So I can actually just drag this down, and now it's behind me. All right. And I have to play with some of the color here because it's not exactly what I want, right? Not a big deal. I like to just move things out of the way. Just easier than trying to, get rid of the layer or rearrange things and so forth. So I like to just kind of just move things to the side. So this way I can select both. All right. So again, you just have to get a little bit creative. So let's go back to our effects here, and maybe there's a color combination that works a little bit better. So I'm going to go to custom, and looks like I've got like lots of oranges here in my image. So maybe that's a good place to start. Or you might think, hey, what goes well with some sort of orange? We could play with maybe a little bit of blue, and then for this duotone image on top, I'm going to go ahead and pick something maybe a little bit more pink and see how that looks, see how it feels. All right, cool. Kind of interesting. So the other settings we haven't gotten into are the actual adjustments for the images. So if you do want to select an object, it's one object per layer. Okay, one object per layer. So Jen is asking, can we create chromatic aberration with Express 2? Like I said, I think it requires a little bit of creativity. Okay, I just have two layers, drop the opacity of one. You can also play with blending modes, right? Just a few different options here. You've got screen, we've got multiply, and then normal. Okay, and as with many Adobe products, if not all, they're always being worked on and improved. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is going to be expanded at some point. But screen's kind of interesting, right? We can drop the opacity. I think I'm on the wrong layer here. So let's go back to normal, and then on this layer in particular I might change to screen, and this way it looks more like, I'm getting a little bit of that pink and blue on either side of the image, which is pretty cool. But going back to the photo options, which is what I was trying to show you here, we can go to adjustments, right? So some of those same adjustments that I had in Camera Raw, like you just want to work quick, spruce up the image, you know, you can do some of that here. You don't have the auto functionality, but if I want to drop the shadows a bit in this image, and you'll see it's kind of updating. I'll slide left to right here so you can kind of see the difference. If I bring the shadows all the way up, it's almost like less contrast. And I can bring the shadows down. We can up the contrast. I just love high contrast images. Plus, I think it's going to read better on things like a smartphone and so forth. We can drop the brightness or up the brightness, depending on what you want to do, or focus on the highlights, things like the lights on my cheeks, the whites in my eyes, and so forth. We can do that. You can also sharpen up the image, right? So that whole sharpening process that I did in Lightroom, you know, there's a tool here. It's pretty quick, and I can throw that or crank that up rather, and now I have a little sharper image. And we can drag our pink here and put that on top, and you'll see I get the sharpness, the richness, the darks are a bit darker, and the pink almost serves as just a complement to everything else. Okay, this background image, so you can set an image as your background on the canvas, or you can just drop an image in. I like the flexibility of just having the image, but we could even apply effects to this image as well. Maybe I don't want black and gold, and this is starting to feel kind of cool now, right? Just playing around. Maybe this is what I want. Okay, cool. So this is where I think a little bit of the professional back and forth can come in. So I want to add an element to this image, and what I'm going to do is just take a quick screenshot of it. You know, everyone works differently. I get it. I like to just take a screenshot, and I'm going to throw this into Photoshop, right? So just opening this in Photoshop, grabbing my Wacom stylus here, and let's just get a nice chunky brush. Whoops. Okay, there we go. Like I said, my keyboard is acting weird today. All right, so I got this nice chunky brush, and I'm going to use white, and maybe we can use another color here as well. Actually, let's reduce the size, and my opacity should be okay. All right, cool. So I got this like chunky brush, and I just want to create a nice rough outline here. A lot of people know me online as sketchaday.com, so I'm going to make this feel a little sketchy, but also give myself a chance to pop off the background a bit. Okay, and let's go ahead and erase some of this. And if you haven't, by the way, and you like to draw, definitely check out the amazing library of free brushes that you can get as a part of your Creative Cloud subscription. Cal Webster has done an amazing job, and many others, as far as contributing amazing brushes that you can use. So if you like to sketch, you like to draw, definitely check that out. And I can even mix and match. Kyle's got this cool splotch brush that I like. Let's make it a little bit sketchy. It actually kind of helps it feel like it ties into the background a little bit. So I like that. And let's erase a little bit here. Just kind of keep this, keep this feeling a little bit sketchy. All right, cool. Skip a couple lines as I'm drawing. So again, you can combine tools, combine processes, and just get creative. And again, as a professional, you might be like, well, why are you doing all of this in Express? And Express just does certain things a lot quicker and easier for me that I feel really comfortable with. Something like this, though, is probably a little bit more difficult to do specifically in Express. So this is where it's that idea of like right tool for the right job. Okay, I now have this outline. I can turn off my background, and I just want to export this image as a PNG. So I'm going to go save as, or save a copy rather, and I'll just dump it in my downloads, call it SS for screenshot. And unless you want to be like really careful and label everything, you can do that. Alternatively, you can drag images to your library if that's what you prefer and how you like to work. But in this case, here I have that outline that we created, And I'm just going to scale that up into place like so. And now I have this cool outline, right? So starting to create using Express, just a fairly, I think, simple, but also creative way to treat this photo so it just looks different. It's distinct. Okay. I do want to mention as well, just one more command. It's not something I'm going to use here, obviously, but you can hit erase. And with erase, oops, let me undo that. You have a brush. You can make it a circle brush. We can adjust the hardness, the opacity, size, and so forth. And if you did want to make some quick changes in Express, I'm using my stylus again. Maybe there's something on this little treatment I don't like. We can come in and make a couple adjustments. It's just a way to quickly mask and change things. And if I crank the size way down, maybe I can get some of that sketchiness, right? Again, if you just get a little creative, knowing how the tool works, we can get a little bit closer to what you want if what you want isn't immediately available. Right. And I just think that's a good trait to have in general as a designer or creative person. It's like, know your tools, know the limitations, but also get creative, right? And as I'm doing this, I'm thinking, you know what? I actually kind of like a little bit more of the sketchy edge. So let's just keep it going using what Express has to offer here. Cool. Now, in the spirit of making this a social media profile picture and image, we're going to add some elements, okay? You might want to add something related to a cause you're supporting, for example. You might want to add some text, whatever. There are elements we can drop in, like say this arrow. I just drop this in. You know, maybe I'm looking at something, maybe I'm thinking about something, maybe I want people to focus on my face, whatever the case may be. If you hold Alt on the keyboard, you can drag that element over. I can flip it horizontally. There's a little command on the left side as well. That's right, good old Kyle Brushes. He's done an amazing job of creating those, and they're free, which is amazing. So maybe I want these to be little arrows. We can adjust the opacity. We can even apply some of those effects to the arrow. Okay, so it's kind of a way to just pigment and color things as needed as well. Maybe this one will make, let's see if we get a nice little orange here or something. It's a little bit pink. Kind of works, but again, you always have the option to go custom and then pick whatever color you want. Going back, let's adjust the opacity ever so slightly, a little bit. All right. Okay. So we have two options now. Okay. We can continue to make elements in Photoshop, or maybe open up Illustrator. I was going to do that today, but I think I just want to focus on a couple of things. Just looking at the time here because of my slow start. Apologies for that, but I highly encourage, even if you're a professional, just try out Express, see how you like it, see what you think. Remember, every element you pull into Express is on its own layer. So if I want to take this paint splash, for example, I can drag this behind and then play with the opacity here. Now it feels more painterly, creative. Maybe thematically I'm thinking, hey, this is like my creative spirit kind of just, you know, splashing onto the canvas. Whatever sparks your imagination, whatever makes sense to you, you can throw in there. And then there's a couple more interesting things you can do. I actually love the text tool in Adobe Express. I'm not just saying that. It's pretty freaking cool. All right. So I'm going to hit add your text, and let's just keep it in theme. New year, new me. Oops. All right. Some simple text to start. 2 lines. Okay. Well, we have options here, again, pulling from the amazing library of text options from Adobe Stock and Adobe Fonts. Lots of great options here. Of course, for the professionals, if you want to do your own typographic treatment, you know, hop into Illustrator, download the fonts, activate them, whatever you got to do. make something in your library and drop it in. And if we have time at the end permitting, I'll show a little bit of that. But let's try a couple options here. This one's actually pretty cool. It's called heavy, or no, 8. It's called 8. But for those who, maybe you're not comfortable with typography or typographic treatments, and you're like, I don't know where to begin. One of the really cool things I think about Express is that here at the top we have recommendations. Okay, they're based on what you make and add to the file. They'll keep updating. Like, it's almost like having a little friend with you that's like, hey, what if you try this font? What if you try this color? What if you try this element? It's pretty cool. So it's giving me some options here based on the image. I'm not sure what secret sauce, special behind the scenes stuff is happening, but I mean, there are some cool options here. I think this one even has a little bit of grunge. Maybe I want to do something that's more like all over, right? I could do something like that. But I did want to show you this one option. I swear, this is like one of my favorite things, the dynamic text box. If I just click this, it automatically, for those of you who have spent hours or minutes or years or months of your life creating justified text blocks that have different line heights, but also, fit across, you'll appreciate how easy that was just now. I hope you appreciate it because it's just one click. Or if I want this in a circle, maybe I want it around my head, right? It's kind of cool, a little bit differently. We can adjust the size there, and I could put this, say it's coming off the page a little bit, but we can put this here, and we can adjust, how big the circle is, and I believe, okay, maybe I can't. I thought I could. Oh yeah, there we go. I can even rotate this. So maybe I want it to be at a slight angle. New year, new me. We can change the color of the font. Maybe I'll go with white, and then we can crank the opacity down or something. So maybe this is an option you want to play with. I mean, shoot, like I want to just even going through this exercise, I'm like, maybe I should make like a little card for people and send it to them. There are so many options with what you can do. In fact, here in Express, and I'm not even going over all the buttons and the things you can do, but if I go to add, we can add a new page. We can duplicate the page. I can make a custom size for a new page. Like, again, maybe I'm thinking, hey, this would make actually a cool postcard, but I just want to duplicate this so we can take a look at options. So if I hit duplicate, it just copies everything. And maybe this option, I want to have the text in a dynamic text block like we had before. I can snap to 0. We can have this as an all over treatment, maybe play with the opacity a little bit here just to be a little bit different. And we can keep duplicating. So I can duplicate this again. And now I can say, hey, this text block, let's make it a little bit smaller. And I believe I need to make it a little wider. There we go. So if I drag this wider, it's just automatically figuring out what it is I want. We can throw that in. There's additional effects as well for text. So if you want to put text in that profile picture, we can change the shape or add a shape to the text. I'm going to add this pill shape, or maybe I want to add this ribbon, these other elements, right? So this is actually kind of cool because I have this like, this is just so much fun. Now I can like offset this line and, maybe keep it a little bit more free flowing, messy, whatever. So it's kind of like having the ability, if you will, to come up with just multiple designs real quick. And if you want to see all the designs that we came up with, just click on this little button. I said this little button. Let me go back so you can see what I'm talking about here. So this little button here next to your zoom window at the top of your Adobe Express window, we can click this number. Will this be my new profile picture? I don't know if this one will be, Jan. I actually took some new headshots yesterday, so I may just pull them in and do the same treatment. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty fun. But here are 3 options that I have, right? And we can go back to any one of these. I can double click here. Now this one's open. We can change our text treatment. In fact, we can even do things like this little arch. So maybe I want this arch to be more like a halo, and whoa, I think I skipped here. So we can go previous page, and you can see maybe I want this to be more of a halo, and we can look at some other elements as well. All right, so for my last magic trick, I want to show you, because some social media sites, the Clock app, for example, you can actually upload a profile video, okay? And if you're not used to video, sometimes it can be a little bit intimidating, but adding a little bit of motion can just add another layer of richness or interest, or depth to what you're doing. So let's try that out. Okay, let's try it out and see what happens. I'm actually going to make myself, and okay, let's pick that one. It's not letting me pick multiple. Okay, maybe I have to group them together. You know what? I'm not going to mess with that. I was going to make myself a little bit bigger on the canvas. I thought I could multiple select here, but I can't. So we're going to work with our limitation, or maybe the limitation of my knowledge, because I'm just getting into Express and I love it. All right. So what we can do here is I'm going to pick an element. So let's say this text, for example. I'm going to go scroll down and hit animation. Okay. So what that's going to do is going to give me three options. Maybe I want on the in. So there's in. Let me go back here. There's in, looping, and out. So if you want something to come in to focus, okay, or on your canvas, your video, okay, click in. And then you can decide, hey, I want this to spin in, right? So this is going to spin in from the left, or you could say I want it to spin from the bottom, whatever you want it to do. Express will figure it out. You have two controls here, duration, right? So if I want this to take a little bit longer, okay, I can up the duration or drag that down and we can just play with it. The personality, we can have it be more smooth, or if we want it to be loud or energetic, I kind of like loud, so I'm going to go with that. You can play with the intensity, you can even play with the direction. And then what I want it to do once it's in is I want it to wiggle. Okay, I want this wiggle over my head. So will it be my new profile picture? We'll see. So I can have this thing wiggle. So it's going to spin in and wiggle. And then on the out, we can have it grow. So it'll just scale up and disappear. All right. And if I hit play here, you'll kind of see what happens. It's in, it's wiggling, and then toward the end, it'll scale up and disappear. All right. And just kind of loop over again. All right. So I animated my text. I can also click on this layer, the one that I sketched. And if I go to animation, I kind of want this one to just loop. I just want it to wiggle, and I want it to be intense, and maybe not that intense. All right, I'm going to drop the speed a little bit. But again, you can just play with it and see what works for you. All right, cool, perfect. So now I've got that's coming in. My outline's wiggling a little bit. Okay, we can even, on this layer that's blue, we can go animate. I can loop this one and say, you know, maybe I just want it to jitter. Actually, jitter is what I wanted overall. That's really what I wanted for the outline, but I'm going to crank the intensity down here just so it's slightly moving. Let's click on this outline again. Under animation, instead of wiggle, we're going to go with jitter. All right, and I'm going to crank this intensity way down. So now when I play, I have a little bit of animation happening. We can even click on this element here in the back, and you know, maybe it's like a splash, like it hits the canvas, splashes, and gets a little bit bigger. Okay, I think we're at the end of our time here, so I'm gonna do this one thing, and let's see. Oh yeah, grow. So that kind of works, grow, right? And I want the personality to be energetic, so it like grows in. New year, new me, happy new year, whatever. We can play that now, and so I already have. I can export this as a still image, or I can export this as a video. So now I'm going to go to, I think it's here. Okay, let's go back. Or maybe it's under share. Okay, there we go. Share. So under share, you do have options to post directly to your social media. I haven't set that up myself. You can also download the image. I'm totally missing the button here that's gonna let me download. So apologies. May have just been another update. Let's go to pages and see if it's an option here. Oh, download. There we go. So I'm gonna click on this one and I'm gonna go. I was looking at the button the whole time. So let's go download, and then you can download an MP4. So I can hit that. It's gonna process it. In the meantime, if you want, you can start a file, right? So you can just keep moving. But now I have an MP4 that I can upload to, say, TikTok, and that's now my new video profile image. In fact, because so many of you have suggested I do this, I'm gonna go ahead and do that in TikTok and update my profile picture. Okay, so that's downloaded now. If I want, I can also go for something like a JPEG and hit download. And here in my downloads, you'll see I do have the MP4 file. It's opened up right now. You can play that. There I am, new year, new me. So yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining on Adobe Live. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hopefully you take an opportunity to refresh your own profile picture, dive right in, and definitely check out Adobe Express if you get the chance. All right. I think the orchestra is playing, so I'm out. Have a fantastic Thursday, and I hope to see you again here on Adobe Live. Stick around for more amazing content and creative inspiration. Take care, everyone.